Hello, everybody, and welcome to our fireside chat about managing talent pipelines for people with disabilities in the mainly German-speaking area. My name is Wolfgang KOWATSCH, and I'm the co-founder of myAbility, a social business located in Vienna with a team of 50 people. I'm very happy that I have great guests today that I'm asking briefly to introduce themselves. First, dear Susan, I hand over to you.
I'm Susan Scott Parker, and I'm an advisor to the ILO's Global Business Disability Network and to Valuable 500.
And Michael, I'm handing you the microphone.
Thank you very much. Hello, everyone. It's amazing to be here. My name is Michael ZAKALL. I am a talent manager and human resources manager at myAbility Social Enterprise.
Fantastic. I'm very much looking forward to talking to you today. Susan, I may start with you. On Wednesday, we had a great talk already about talent pipelines in general and how relevant and important they are and will be in the future for people with disabilities. Could you bring in some of the outcomes of that great talk?
Well, I think we clarified the difference between trying to help individuals with disabilities to find jobs one at a time when they're competing with so many other people and they're not known to the employer, to talent pipeline management, which means that the employers meet those individuals while they're in training at university, through internships, through mentoring, so that actually they have a pool of disabled talent that are already known to the business. And actually, you've got disabled talent who've had a chance to consider, because they've met the individuals from the companies, whether or not they do want to work for that bank or that retailer or that gas company. So it's a much more effective way of bringing a stream of people with disabilities into employment and careers rather than the old-fashioned way, which is one person at one time trying to find the right employer with the right vacancy at the right moment.
Okay, thank you. Before I hand over to you, Michael, I want to say one or two words about how we with myAbility try to contribute to that. What we do mainly in the German-speaking area, as I said before, we try to support organizations to become more disability confident, inclusive, and accessible. We have been working on 4 streams. Just very briefly, the first stream is consultancy, so we are building up know-how on a strategic level, also in terms of accessibility, and mainly more and more important also how to measure measurements of inclusion and ERG. The second stream is trainings and awareness building. We are running every day in the average, every day of the year, one training, mainly digitally, but also with our e-learning platform to build up know-how and the awareness. And the third very important stream is we also run business networks where we create spaces for organizations to exchange experience, to exchange learnings and to learn from each other. We're running the National Business Disability Network in Austria, in the near future also in Switzerland. And the last stream, and that's a bit the focus topic of today, can be called talent. And there we do 2 things. The first thing is, and this is a project I've been working on for more than 15 years already, is our talent and career platform called myAbility.jobs. And the really important thing today I want to stress is what we do not do with that platform is to incentivize individual job postings that should be covered short term. Of course, we also do it and we are ready to support, but I think it's much more useful and of value to think in time and to think in presence and in audience. So what we do there is we offer half a year, 1 year, maybe several years of presence on our platform, and we share ideally all the job offerings of the companies, or at least parts of them. What we also do is we have a profile space for companies where they can talk about disability inclusion, where the CEO can say what he thinks about it, where there is contact persons, where there is videos and all of that. And this should create space for getting to know each other and maybe even building up trust, confidence, authenticity. This is very important also in the aspect of proactively building up the conversation and the interaction with job seekers. And the second part of this talent area we are working on is our talent programs. We've been running, I think, between 20 or 25 programs so far in Vienna, Zurich, and 2 of them per year in Germany. And the idea there is exactly what you brought in before, Susan, to not think of job coverage, short-term, one person for one job, but we try to open up the stage for getting to know each other in a structured way, which is companies meet not only one talent, but many talents, and they start talking. And later on, when there is the openings and when there is the jobs that are relevant, then there's already a pipeline, such to say, and it's much easier to hire. Before I say more or too much, I already talked a lot. I hand over to you, Michael. You have been working with many, like several hundred talents. You have supported many companies, and that's the even best thing, you were a talent yourself many years ago. So what's your opinion on that, and what's your personal experience with the idea of proactive hiring and building up a pipeline versus short-term coverage?
Yeah, thank you very much, Wolfgang. So with a working pipeline, for example, the talent program. Talent program is networking and connecting people living with disabilities, students, academics from all fields of the economy, with inclusive companies. And a lot of, it's like 40 to 50 companies every year from the valuable 500. And with a working pipeline where we are connecting them, where we are consulting, coaching, and training both sides, what we can do, or what the program can do, and what the companies can do, is fill knowledge gaps of the students, you know, who want to work in jobs like in the near future. And not only that, and especially on the disability recruiting, the communication is, I think, is key, and what can work to make this strong relationship for future hiring.
Just a little question adding to that. How did it feel to you as a talent? Did you feel yourself part of a pipeline, or how was that in real life?
Yes, so I said I'm a human resources manager, but I was a former musical actor, so what I had to do was get to know economy, get to know everything. And 4 years ago, I went into the talent program as a talent in human resources, and I had the opportunity to meet companies in job shadowings, where I was at the office and get to know people from the human resources, but also fill my knowledge gap, learn everything I could about the company. I take, for example, Microsoft Austria. I had an internship there. I learned all the structures the company has. And actually, after the 6 months, back in 2021, I could work for Microsoft. And I was the human resources manager I am today. But the actual part that was the biggest learning for me as I'm living with a chronic illness was that I learned to communicate what I need. And in the end, we were not talking about disability. We were talking about what I can bring on the table in the end as a human resources.
That's great. Thank you for your openness. Susan, how does this resonate with you? And can you bring in other examples?
Well, everywhere we go, we see examples of employers getting it right when they learn directly from people with disabilities. And the best way to do that, of course, is to actually, if you're looking at talent acquisition, is to learn from disabled talent. So we've got examples, say, in Nairobi, where Safaricom has offered internships to 36 graduates of a local digital training program. Paid internships. The business learns, becomes much more confident about disability, and the job seekers become much more business confident as they can imagine themselves actually working in Safaricom. There are so many examples of this, and it's only logical. We should by now, as a disability sector and all the funders, have learned from the research that learning how to do a job in an institution over there is not nearly as effective if the aim is employment and careers as learning it on the job inside the company, inside the public sector employer.
I can also confirm that when we talk about the talent programs all together, I'm noticing that the dropout rate is very low, even if companies do not hire on spot. So it's more difficult for us to say no. There is no more spots left for employers than to run the program itself. So it also shows that we might be on the right track, and we should support in similar initiatives additionally.
I'd just like to add to that actually the research is showing that recruiters are having to think differently. So it's not that we're just suggesting talent pipeline management just for people with disabilities. These employers have noticed, and the Gartner research proves it, that between 30 and 34% of new hires leave within 90 days. So they've got the turnover because they haven't managed a pipeline to ensure that the people they're hiring actually want to work in that company, and that the company has the right information about the individual to do the match. So what we're trying to do is to leverage this interest across the HR and hiring community to say you're learning that you reduce the churn and the costs associated with getting it wrong when you develop talent pipelines that give you access to a pool of individuals. You know, they know you, and you're much more likely to see them still there a year later.
Thank you. Michael, the last question for you is, can you tell us some stories? First, what were the expectations, fears, hopes of talents taking part, or what is relevant that it is successful for them? And on the other hand, can you give us some examples of how companies managed it successfully to build up this pipeline and at the later point hire people?
Absolutely. So when talking about success in the companies, every year, like for example, Mondi in Austria is giving away tens of job shadowings where the talents, academic students, can shadow every aspect that they are a professional in. Or Takeda, PwC, and Microsoft is handing over yearly at least 10 internships. Or, for example, it was also L'Oreal in Germany and PwC in Austria who are working together with the talents to improve their inclusion strategy, but also hiring them from the spot, from the pipeline. And when I talk about what are the fears of people living with disabilities, having access to the to applying to the application process, and also what I can think of, what both sides really want is a strong partner and someone who they can rely on for a longer period of time. Building this strong relationship long term is what I learned from the coachings is the biggest part. So when we are talking about disability recruiting and the pipeline or proactive talent program, that they want to fill positions even if they are not vacant for the future, and in the end have the workspace that they need, and in the end not talk about disability on the workspace, just be the professional that they are. And what makes me most happy about such a pipeline is for the future, if we are having, like, let's say 150 talents every year, and next year those talents become employees in the program, in the companies, and then they sit on the other side and hiring new talents. This is what makes me happy.
It's the most beautiful, happy end, right? I'm taking quickly two messages here, and I hope you agree. One is, when you build up a talent pipeline, you do not only successfully hire people in the future, but also learn a lot. Yeah. And the second is, it builds strong relationships also in your case, because you're still very close to Microsoft. So it's kind of various levels that are very valuable, not only the result, which is recruiting. Susan, may you close our fireside chat with final remarks and maybe a call to action?
Final remarks in 2 minutes, or whatever we have left. I think this trend towards talent pipeline management, enabling disabled people into work, is driven by the insight that actually the employer is the most important customer of any organization that's serious about economic empowerment, because only the employer has the power to say, yes, I will hire, yes, I will keep. And yet the system systematically does not fund most employment-related programs or training programs to meet the needs of the employer. So the breakthrough for me is it will be reinforced by funders saying to training programs, you must think bringing those employers in so they meet your students while they're in training, pipeline. You must be funded so that you can build relationships with the companies in the way that Michael's describing, so that they trust you to be there, because they've never actually had a blind intern before. They've never had a hearing impaired intern before. They're anxious that they don't know what to do or how to do it. But they need to trust the intermediary to actually support both the manager and the individual. And we need to start measuring training programs not by the numbers that are trained, but by the numbers that actually get into pipelines, paid internships, and then jobs. And so that means we need funders to attach different conditions to their expectations of what a quality training program looks like. And we need to acknowledge that the gap between the disability sector and the private sector is a problem. The gap is a problem. And that the disability sector, by which I mean OPDs and NGOs, everyone who wants to help disabled people get a proper place in a proper job, has to take on the responsibility to actually become more business confident. You need to understand the needs and reality of the people you want to say yes.
Fantastic.
Is that okay?
Final remarks. I'm very sad that we need to stop here. The time is over, and thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.